Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Savvy Cast. This is Jamie, and I'm so happy you're joining today, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening to the podcast. Today, I have a guest that is going to give us a plethora of information on how to protect children from pornography. My guest, Kristen Jenson, is the founder of Defend Young Minds and the #1 best-selling author of Good Pictures, Bad Pictures and Good Pictures, Bad Pictures Jr., with over 375,000 copies sold worldwide. Both are read-aloud books that teach young children how to reject pornography. Her books have been translated in over a dozen languages and are now augmented by a guidebook for counseling kids, which supports child therapists and educators. Kristen and her team have developed a wide range of resources, including the Brain Defense Digital Safety Curriculum, downloadable guides, and timely articles to help millions of parents raise empowered, resilient, screen-smart kids. I am more than delighted to have today as my guest on the Savvy Cast, Kristen Jenson. Kristen, thank you so much for joining me today on the Savvy Cast.
It's great to be with you, Jamie.
Well, I want to dive right in because this is a very important topic and you are definitely an expert on it. But before we dive in, I want to ask you the icebreaker question that I ask all my first-time guests. And that would be, what would you choose as your last meal?
I think it would be something like a wonderfully grilled, seasoned salmon.
Ooh.
Salmon fillet, maybe with some garlic mashed potatoes and a really good fresh salad.
That sounds like something I would choose. And Kristen, aren't you in on the Pacific Coast?
Yeah. We are in the Northwest in Washington State. So,
Kristen, I want to, first of all, thank you for being here. And second of all, let everyone who's watching or listening know that this is a topic that we don't have to be parents. We can be grandparents, godparents, step-parents, or we can just be people who love children. This is something we need to know about and talk about, and it is how to protect children from pornography. And before I came up to get on with you, my friend who's down the street, she's my neighbor, she has school children, she has 3, and she saw the books and she says, "Oh my goodness, you're reading those? I have those, they're wonderful." And I said, "Well, I'm about to have her on my podcast." She says, "Oh, those are the best resources." So I will let everyone know at the outset, I'm going to be linking to Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, and the junior version of Good Pictures, Bad Pictures. And I'm sure that after this episode, everyone is going to want to buy one or both of these for the people that you love. I'm getting these for my children, Kristen, my daughters, because I have 2 granddaughters, one 4 months and one 6 months. And they'll be ready for this before we know it. So, Kristen, would you just tell us where this all began? What led you to start educating people about this topic?
Well, it was never one of my life goals, but a woman that I just met called me up one night and told me the story about her 17-year-old son and how he had gotten into pornography and then how he had been sexually abusing his younger brothers and sisters. And he had to be prosecuted. Thankfully, he was sent to a program, an educational program in our state. But there is so much of that going on now where, pornography is fueling this child-on-child harmful sexual behavior. In any case, we talked till 1 a.m. I got up the next day just with this thought that just kept coming to my mind about, how are we going to warn the young children about pornography? Because you can see the devastating results it had in this family. And, it just goes on and on and on, the problems that come out of it. And when children aren't warned, they don't know, right? They don't. So I started a little research and looking into what I thought I could just buy her a book. That's kind of what I was. So I searched for a book, couldn't find one, and then had this crazy idea. I'll just write a book. I'll just write the book. I can sure we can boil this down for a 7-year-old. And it took 3 years, but that was the beginning of Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, Porn Proofing Today's Young Kids. And it models a conversation between a mother and a father and a child. And that's really important because it's those conversations that are so protective.
So, and I have I've gone through both of these. And what I love about these books, these resources, they're very empowering. They give you a roadmap. They give you the conversation. Basically, you're getting a sort of a script, which of course will be personalized to each family. And is it safe to say that it is a topic that although a lot of people's first inclination, oh, just don't mention it. It's not, we'll shield our kids. We'll not let them do this, go here, whatever. We won't give them a smartphone. It's everywhere and it will find them. Is that safe to say it will find them?
Absolutely. And that's why sometimes I'm a little bit worried about using the word protect. I think you can have protective conversations that will help them kind of with digital defense skills, right? And help them understand how to reject pornography and why to reject pornography. But there's just no way unless you're going to keep them in a basement, right?
Right.
I never let them go out because you can shut everything. You can think you have everything shut down in your house. And often that's not 100% true. But even if you do that, even if you're able to do that, the moment they walk out the door, it's there. It's there. A friend, at their school, anyone, so many kids have these, and I had a story from a mom whose 9-year-old son, she read him Good Pictures, Bad Pictures. 3 days later, he was at school. One of his classmates came up, showed him pornography,
On his phone.
On his phone. And he recognized it. He had been warned. He went home. He turned away and he went home and he told his mom and he said, I was scared, but I knew what to do. I was scared, but I knew what to do. So we're really taking a burden off of our children when we become their ally and their helper and their coach, basically. So we may feel a little uncomfortable, but let me tell you, they're going to be so burdened if we don't. So let's just take that burden off their shoulders and help them face the world that they're actually living in, not the world that maybe we grew up in or we wish they were growing up in.
Right.
But the real world that they're growing up in.
Boy, that's true. It's a reality. And I am 60, my husband and I both. And back in our day when we were growing up, I think the extent of what you could find was a magazine. There was no internet at that point. There were no smartphones, but today it is everywhere. So can you just tell us what you think the ideal age, and I know children are different, they mature at different levels, but the junior that I'm holding up right now, Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, junior, what's the ideal age or time of their life that you would start this?
I would start this not at a particular age, but at any age where they have any access to the internet. So if that means they're 2 or 3, if they look at any screens whatsoever, if they go to grandma's house and look at a screen, if they go to a preschool and look at a screen, if they go anywhere and look at a screen, I think it's time to have a gentle warning. And if you've looked through the junior book, it is very sweet and gentle and not scary, but it just gives kids a heads up. Like, hey, if you see because look, and it's a very simple definition. So these books give kids a definition, a warning, and a plan, right? So they know what it is, they can recognize it, they know why it's dangerous, and they have reasons to reject it, and they know how to do it, right? A plan. So in the junior book, I mean, this is a very simple, but if you see nudity, we don't say the word nudity, but if you see people without clothes on, Honestly, if a kid sees nudity online or on a screen, they're probably not looking at the Sistine Chapel, right?
Right,
Yeah, the
right,
David, right? They're probably
yeah,
out looking at some great artwork or something.
right.
Maybe looking at something troubling. But they need to have a conversation about it, right?
Mhm.
Whatever it is, they need to have you come in and have a conversation with them, help them unpack it, interpret it, know what to do with it.
I love that you you start with in the junior talking about pictures and art and beautiful things.
Right.
But there is always a corrupted version of anything in this world. And sex was created by God as a beautiful thing to be enjoyed. But of course, the Satan has perverted it. And what you are trying to do, and I love this, is try to stop before it starts what can basically ruin the life of a child and make it
Mhm.
where they don't get to enjoy the fullness of that gift when they are in a marital relationship one day.
Yeah. They said, porn kills love and porn ties marriages and porn even kills the desire to get married and the ability to have that intimate sexual relationship. So we're giving our kids a gift if we can help them and persuade them to turn away from pornography whenever they're exposed to it. And yes, in the books, we start with the good pictures. Now, we don't show any bad pictures in the books.
Right,
So
right.
I've been asked that
Yeah,
before, but
yeah.
it's like, here's some good pictures, but did you know there are also bad pictures? And I want you to know about the bad pictures so you can turn away from them and protect your precious brain, right? Your one precious brain.
If you had to say what age most of the cases that you're familiar with, what age are most young children exposed to some form of pornography? And I know they have screens, they have tablets when they're toddlers, but when they're old enough to recognize something's not right, what today in 2025, what do you think that is?
Yeah. Well, I would say in today's world, actually, we just put out an article on Defend Young Minds about all the ways the kids are going to get targeted because pornography it's predatorial and it's coming after your kid on gaming and all kinds of sites. But all the ways that your kid can be exposed to pornography, and there's 13 different ways that we've identified that they can get hurt in 2026. And so you're asking about the average age that kids get exposed to this. So this is the problem with an average age. It is very difficult to go to a kindergarten through sixth grade and do some kind of survey and say, how many of you have seen porn? You would not get permission to do that. So what they do is they do, retrospective and they say, to a 16 or 17-year-old, like, when was the first time you saw porn?
Right.
It's very difficult for them to identify. And you're always playing catch up because the world has gotten more and more, this has become more and more pervasive. So I would say that I hear about 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9-year-olds all the time seeing pornography. The average from the studies say it's more like 11 or 12. So you can do it with, what you will with that. All I'm saying is that a child, you don't have a crystal ball. You don't know exactly when that child will be exposed. Had a friend who they had some people over for dinner and their son came over and walked up to his mom and said, "Hey, can I borrow your phone? I want to play this game or I want to show this whatever to her kids." And she just had this thought in her head, "You should go follow him and see what's happening." He went and she said, "Oh, you can only get on these certain websites." And no, he went and he entered the word sex and he was going to show these little kids, something pretty awful. And it was, the kid was, I don't know, 8 or 9 and her kids were younger and it could have happened like that. Totally unexpected in what would normally be a safe place, right? These are friends, are going over to dinner. So I think that because we cannot predict, we need to prepare.
Right.
And that's a gift to our children. that will serve them because we just do not know when they're going to be exposed.
Mm. Well, can you tell us? You just referenced, and I am going to link to everything in our podcast show notes, not only your books, but all of your resources. The 13 ways in 2026 that people or young people can be exposed. Do you mind sharing? Maybe not all. I mean, just whatever you think, or maybe some we may not. That may be shocking because I always have this fear of being oblivious to a danger.
Oh, no.
I mean, like I remember when my girls were younger, we let them watch Teletubbies. And someone later told me that there was some hidden something in Teletubbies. And I mean, they were like these little creatures. And I remember we were shocked and appalled. And I don't really know. I don't know how that ever really panned out. But I've always had this fear of not knowing of a danger. So
Yeah.
if there are any of those you're able to share, but I know I took you unaware. So
No, that's fine. First of all, you can find the article on defendyoungminds.com. Look under articles. It's just was loaded up recently, but you can always scroll back and find it. It really is our most popular article of the year because we just round up, what's new on the horizon. I think most parents understand that social media is probably the most common way, and that is truly the most common way kids find porn is on social media. And most kids see it by accident. So it's not that our kids are bad or even looking for it, but it's coming after them and then it hooks them, right?
Right.
It intrigues them. The leading source would be X or, formerly Twitter.
Really?
Pornography. Yes. Well, just look what Elon Musk did recently. He put a little button. And I don't know how many of your listeners know about Nudify apps, but basically they're very common. You can download them from the app stores and they take a picture and then they use AI to make a nude out of the picture. And so he has put a button that on X, you can just press to nudify whatever picture you're seeing. And yeah. Thank you, Elon. We appreciate
Oh
that.
my goodness.
He's also made Grok. Grok is his AI, and it has been making child pornography. And he got called out for that. So the problem is with AI, it's really difficult to put guardrails on AI. And so you've got to be really careful with AI because kids can now make their own porn using AI. So that's another thing. All right. Hey, at this point, let's find something lighter. But one of the things that I think most parents are surprised is that it can be on Spotify and other music apps. You just said it's music, but you can find pornified, very highly sexualized podcasts, and they're not behind any kind of wall. Kids can get to them. Anyway, there's a whole lot of ways. AI, of course, generative AI. Old phones and forgotten devices, kids will find them. If they still can get through Wi-Fi, they can, and you don't have your Wi-Fi completely protected.
They could just reignite the phone and they have an unsupervised phone.
Yeah. Hidden browsers that can bypass parental controls. Let's see, Roblox and all those games that kids can play.
Are there some games that a lot of parents might think are fine, but they're really not? I know a friend of mine was telling me about one that a lot of her friends' kids play Fortnite.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And she said that in her opinion, that was a dangerous game. And I don't know. I'm not in that world. I've got grown daughters. Is that a game that is dangerous?
Yeah. So let me tell you that any kind of game where anybody can go on and play, you've got the whole world and kids play it. So when you have kids playing, like where do predators go?
Where kids are.
Where kids are. So I was saying where kids play, predators prey. And so and then we're not talking the praying to God part, right? We're talking P-R-E-Y, right? And so another game, it's really not a game. It's called Roblox. And Roblox is a gaming platform where you have developers, they can use that platform, they can develop their own game and put it on the platform. So Roblox is like the YouTube of this particular kind of game. And anybody and any kind of game, there's lots of sexualized games there, lots of very pornographic games with sexual role plays, sexual chats, violent content on Roblox. And a lot of parents like, oh, my kids want to play Roblox. That sounds like a fun little game. It's not safe. My young grandsons play a game, and now I'm going to blank on it, but it's a game where you can actually have your own private little server, right? And Minecraft, that's what it is. They have their own little server. They're not out there playing with the entire world.
Oh, okay.
They've got their own little, you can do this.
So it's a controlled environment.
It's very controlled. So that's what I would recommend is that you find games that have more control. So for example, there's another game that, and this is a question parents need to ask. Can anybody that is playing this game from anywhere in the world contact my child and talk to them? And if that answer is yes, you really need to hit the pause button and think about it, because there's a myth. My child is safe in his or her room or in our living room playing the game. What could possibly happen? And the problem is there is so much that could possibly happen. These people are experts at sextorting children, getting them to send either pictures, videos, money, also leading them to a second place. You know how you always were trained, like if someone were to kidnap you, don't go to the second place, like fight.
Yeah, fight. Die right there because you're going to die there. Die. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So Discord for an online is the second place. And the thing is these kids get pulled into these friendships in air quotes. And then the perpetrators out there, they are organized. They talk to each other. They have platforms and they will share information. So you think your kid is anonymous, but there's so many tricky ways to figure out exactly where your kid lives and also to talk to your kid and get them to leave the home and meet you at a park, meet a perpetrator at a park. This is played over and over. And it's so important not to think that just because your child is in your home in front of a screen with a game that they are 100% secure and safe, because they're not. So I think that's the thing about games, and we need to be more savvy about that. And about not only that, but like the mental turmoil that can happen when these predators prey on these kids. They're very good at what they do. They're very expert. They befriend the child, they develop the relationship, and then they start to extort. And they're very good at all that. They're specialists. And if you think your kid is a match for their expertise, I would beg to differ. So let's figure out some other options that are safer for our kids other than those, massive multiplayer games.
So we really do need to remind ourselves that a game or an app, it is the World Wide Web. It is worldwide access. So that even leads me to, this is just going to be, I want your opinion on this. And you do not have to have a platform. Like I'm an influencer and I have different platforms, but it doesn't matter. You can just have your personal Facebook or an Instagram, and you want to show your Christmas card with your children, or you want to show a family vacation. Is that dangerous? I mean, I know there can be danger in everything, but
Yeah.
when you talked about the apps that can undress, I mean, you may wonder if we should ever let our children's faces be shown.
That is a tricky thing. I would say that I would never do it publicly. I would always do it just within a friend group. My daughter will not let us share. I've got 3 really cute grandsons, and I cannot share their faces on any social media. They will not let me. Sometimes at Halloween, I show their costumes, and I have to put like a little
Yeah.
happy face sticker over their faces.
Yeah.
And they're getting just very savvy at figuring out where these kids are. And I would just be careful
Yeah.
that those, it is so, we want to share our family situation, all these things with friends. I tend, for example, when we go on a trip, this is what I do. I set up a Facebook Messenger group and I put it out there like, hey, I'll be traveling. I don't say where. If you want to come along for the ride, you can join this Facebook Messenger group. And then I have this curated group, and then that's where I will share all the pictures. I don't share them with everybody, just the people that are interested. And that's kind of a throwback because that's how it used to be, right? You used to show pictures to your close friends and family. So I don't know. That's how I do it. I think everyone has to figure out their level of comfort. But there are cases where certain kinds of children, their faces are used to make child porn. And I wouldn't want that to happen to anyone that I love. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You are in the trenches of this. You've talked about pornography. How do we best protect our children from people in our circle, family, school? What are your best tips for that? Because so many people were abused or molested by a friend, a coach, a camp counselor. I mean, we all have heard of those. Do you have any new advice on how to protect against that?
How do we keep our children safe, not only from pornography, but from sexual abuse, right? And predators. And, pornography is the number one grooming tool for sexual predators. So having kids understand that if somebody shows them pornography, they need to come and report it is vital, because I'll give you a story. A 6-year-old little boy went with his family to a friend's house again for dinner, seemingly very safe. The kids' toys had been put downstairs temporarily, and so they were able to run down, pick out a toy, and come back up. Well, this little boy was down there kind of, which toy do I want? He was taking a little bit longer. And a man who turned out was renting the basement came up with a phone, showed him gay porn, started to groom him, started to say how much fun this would be. And he recognized it. And he also knew nobody should be showing him pornography. And he got himself out of that situation and told his mom. And he basically was safe. So if children understand to report that kind of thing, that makes them so much safer from predators. Now, we have a body safety toolkit on our website. And there are many books that we recommend about body safety. I think the thing that parents need to recognize is that it could be anyone. So it's not so much like, okay, these 3 people are trusted. It's what's the behavior, right? So you want to teach your children more, not about like, who are the ones that are trusted? I mean, it would be nice if you could do that. Like, oh, you can always trust your teacher, or you can always trust your coach, or you can always trust your pastor. You can always trust. Sometimes you can't.
Yeah.
So what's the behavior that is a red flag? Red flag behaviors, asking kids to keep secrets, bribing kids, these kinds of things. There are red flag behaviors that start to happen, and that people just, you want to trust everybody. And I tend to trust people until they're no longer trustworthy. And but for our kids, we have to really be careful and be aware of those red flag situations and the behavior. So teach them about untrustworthy behavior and red flag behavior, and that will actually keep them safer. But you can kind of say, if an adult starts to like pay a lot of attention to your kid, that's a red flag, even if it's a relative, right? Even if it's I have a friend they had a child in the hospital, and she had to leave her kids with a 14-year-old boy who had totally groomed this family. And he was just like, he'd come over, oh, I'll mow your lawn. Oh, I'll do this. He was so nice and everything. And really, it was just to get to the girls. And then the opportunity came where she did hospital all day, or I had to work, and she left him to babysit. And I'm telling you, he was hurting these girls and raping them. So
Wow.
it's for a while. And, it just, and if they had known like the proper body is another thing, like terminology, like they knew what their body parts were called, but they didn't know the name of the boy body parts. So, for example, this one little girl says, I don't like it when he pokes me with his stick. And the mom was like, just tell him to stop. She didn't get it.
She got
And
a literal,
like a stick. Yeah. But she meant his penis.
Ours
So believe that.
So no, so we do no, because we do, in your opinion and based on your research, need to call everything what it is. And if someone is using other terms, is that a red flag? Because you have to ask yourself or tell your child, no, nobody else should be talking to you about your body parts. It's your mom, your dad, unless we're there. Wow. Yeah, there's so many angles. And, when I look, and even when our girls were growing up, even with our close friends, we all made sure my friends who had boys, we didn't even have to say, are your sons going to be home? They would let us know the boys are with the dad. They're going camping this weekend. It's just the girls, because we all had that awareness of just appropriateness. But I think a lot of people may not think that way. So what you're doing is you're bringing awareness. You're just showing what can happen and how to prevent it. Because I know you must hear story after story to the point where it's just probably overwhelming. But what is one that you think if everyone heard this, they would be so much more careful?
I think one of the stories that I heard recently was when I was speaking at it's like a conference for like preschool teachers, right? Early childhood ed teachers. And a woman she came up early into our class and she said, first of all, when I first saw that you were going to be speaking, I was so shocked why you would be speaking in an early childhood education class. She says, but I just had an experience and now I understand why. And I wanted to make sure I got a seat in your class. She told us of a 3-year-old and this little girl was obviously close to her, maybe a family member, maybe a close friend's child. This 3-year-old, they found that had been taking some kind of camera, had access to an iPad or some kind of camera, and was taking pictures of herself without her clothes on. Well, they thought that was odd. That doesn't seem normal. But then they found that she was doing a video of herself trying to have sex with the family pet. And they thought, oh my gosh, all right, she's being groomed. She's got a hands-on perpetrator for sure. They looked into this. I think they even got the FBI in there. Like they really tried to find who's doing this. Right. 3-year-old. They could not find any hands-on perpetrator. What they found was that she was looking at pornography. She'd somehow gotten into pornography and bestiality and was trying to do this with a pet because kids are imitative. Their brains are wired to imitate what they see adults do. That's how they grow up. They have like this brain filled with what they call mirror neurons. And that's what helps them imitate, right? What they see others do and also become like emotionally kind of in tune. And so kids that see pornography often, I can't tell you the exact rate or percentage, it pushes them, many of them, to act out. And just like the story I told you in the beginning, right? To act out what they are seeing themselves and some more vulnerable child. So if we could all get into our brains that it's not that children are bad, It's not that we have failed them as parents, but this is all around us. And it is impacting children. And we need to start these conversations early so that they can have us to come and talk to, and we can help them unpack it. And we can also help them know what to do with those memories that keep popping up in their mind. We have a plan for that in Good Pictures, Bad Pictures. And one more thing, girls, do you know that 44% of women report looking at pornography? Our girls are being impacted. They get into pornography in a different way, but that's why I've written Good Pictures, Bad Pictures Guide for Girls, because girls need different conversations about pornography. And that's will be coming out shortly. But it's so important that we don't think that pornography is just a boy problem or a man problem. It's a human problem. And girls are also very vulnerable to pornography as well, and to be hurt by it.
And you said that there is a difference. Did you say there's a difference in how they're groomed, or what is that main difference? I mean, all I have in my world is girls. I except my two sons-in-law and my husband. So what word of advice other than because everyone in my family will have your resources, but speak to us, those of us who have girls, what should we know?
Yeah. First of all, you should know that they are just as curious about sex as boys are, but the culture tells them they're not supposed to be, right? So they are curious. And in fact, when I started, I heard the story of an 8-year-old girl whose mother had kind of where babies come from, have that sex talk with her. And she had a device that was internet connected. The mother had no clue, but she was looking at pornography, and it changed her personality. She used to be this kind of social butterfly, happy girl, and she just became sadder and sadder and more withdrawn and always wanting to be in her room. And so when they found out, they were able to get her some counseling. But then the thing that I want to say is that girls often get to porn through erotic literature. And there's so much of this YA, young adult books are often very sexualized. Be careful about what they're reading. If they're reading, I think it's great that they're reading, but be careful.
Right.
Some girls also will get to it through anime. And there's a special term for anime porn, which is hentai.
Now, anime, just for those who may not know, is anime not like cartoons that are partly human? I don't know to describe.
Yeah.
Can you define that?
Yeah. Anime is a particular style of cartoon that kind of came out of an Asian, Japanese form. And so it's very popular. But girls will sometimes get into it through a kind of a softer way. You know what I mean? Like they'll start with reading, or they'll start with this cartoon. But there's anime porn out there of Disney characters. Like it is anything you can think of. It's out there. And so it's like, oh, it's a cartoon, And so I know a woman who got addicted to cartoon porn, right? To anime porn. And so it's something that we need to realize, that our children, both girls and boys, are vulnerable. And we need to start these protective conversations, because you have two choices. One, you can cross your fingers and hope they never see it, and you never have to talk to them until they're 17, right? Which is not realistic. Or you can prepare them, just like you do with all the other things, challenges they may face, right? You prepare them, give them scripts, give them reasoning, help them understand the best way to respond or behave, so they know what to do. They know what to do when they see pornography. They know how to respond when they're pressured to look at it or teased or anything like that. And so it's such a gift to give our kids, that we could come alongside and say, you know what, you're probably going to see this if you haven't already. But I want you to know, come and talk with me. And also teach them how it's going to impact their brain. That's part of the book for older kids, Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, Porn Proofing Today's Young Kids, and the Good Pictures, Bad Pictures Guide for Girls, is how does it become an addiction? And there's lots of great addictions, but pornography is probably the most powerful because it involves sexual arousal. And anyway, we could go on, but young children can also be sexually aroused prematurely. So I don't think there's a downside to beginning these conversations early and having them often.
Oh boy, that is so true. And I believe, and it's probably another podcast or another conversation, but and I hear Allie Stuckey has been talking about this a lot on her podcast, but those of us who have girls, teaching them modesty and how you dress, because you can become an obstacle to a young man by dressing a certain way. And I know a lot of people recoil and they say it's not my fault, but we raised our daughters, think about how, if your skirt is up to here, how that might affect your friends who are boys. I mean, I just think there's so many ways to think about how people can become, especially boys, they're more easily aroused, I guess, throughout their whole life than women typically. I just think just as a whole, there are so many angles to this, more than just online. How do we treat each other? How do we dress? What kind of pictures do we post on social media? Do we love to post pictures of ourselves in a bikini or are we I just think there's so many ways to think about this. And I don't know. It's a deep, heavy conversation, but we just have to do the best we can. And the sad thing is, it seems with technology, as you just mentioned, I had no idea the things you just mentioned. And it's like, whoa, AI. I hope somebody puts a stop or a cap on it, because that's scary. That some of the things you shared.
Yeah, it's very difficult to actually put guardrails on AI right now. Very difficult. But I will say, as far as girls and this, I wrote a whole extra chapter in the Guide for Girls about objectification and how pornography teaches us to objectify our bodies, and that our bodies are not things. Our bodies are not decorations for others to look at. Our bodies are to help us, and we are so much more than our body, right? And I think that is a message that you can talk to your girls about that. What is it when you're taking a sexy picture of yourself and putting it on Instagram or whatever, TikTok, what is it that you're saying about yourself? And are you objectifying yourself? And when you think about an object, you can kick a ball and not worry about it, right? But if you kick a human, that's a completely different thing. So when we objectify ourselves or we objectify other people, it's easier to hurt an object, right? And that's what we find in pornography, so much violence because the women are objectified. And we see the objectification happening. So when a girl decides to wear something that is really designed to arouse certain feelings in boys or others, what is she actually doing and what is she actually saying about herself that she's, and so I think that we cover that in this book. And I think I would love to see parents having this conversation from a very young age, because it starts when kids are like 7 and 8 years old. And we see the studies showing that girls' self-esteem comes down, that they're cognitively delayed actually when they are so focused on their appearance. So, and we're all affected by this,
Yeah.
But something that's so important, that girls are a part of this equation, and we need to protect them or help them, defend them, right? As much as we do our boys.
Wow. Well, I want you to, if there's anything I have that you would like to say before we sign off? I would love for you to say it, but can you just give everyone, in addition to your 2 books, and we're going to list everything in the show notes, other resources that they can find to better equip them to protect kids? Besides your books, what else are we going to be able to share?
Yeah. So we have, first of all, we'd love to have you follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and X and LinkedIn and all those. But we have guides, like we have a free guide, how to talk to kids about, pornography. It has great tips. We have body safety guides. We have emotional resilience guides. And we have a guide that, what happens when you know your child has seen pornography? How do you respond to that? And it's really critical that you get that right. So we have a whole guide on what to do when your kid sees porn, right? And we've got like this smart plan guide. So you can find that on defendyoungminds.com. And I would just want to end with encouragement that, this may seem daunting, but once you get started, it normalizes. It's okay. Everyone feels like relieved that they've started the conversation. It's not a one and done because your kids, this is always going to be part of their lives. You need to continue those conversations.
Mhm.
But, we really make it easy at Defend Young Minds, sending out weekly emails and all kinds of prompts for discussions. So, yeah, I would invite you to follow us and know that we are there with you every step of the way. And, when people email us, we respond to your emails.
Oh,
It's really for us a mission to help parents. And we love doing it. And I love talking with people like you that have the courage to bring up this sensitive topic. So thank you. I really appreciate it.
well, I will be following you on every platform. I'll be spreading the word because you are doing a wonderful service to anyone who wants it. So, Kristen, thank you. And anytime there's more new things that we need to know, shoot me an email and we'll have you back on. And to all of you watching and listening, please check out all these resources in the show notes. And as always, until next time, you have a fabulous rest of your day.